One Night Only, an absurd movie premise where having sex before marriage is outlawed.
Yeah, premarital sex is outlawed.
That's what they say the whole time. Premarital sex is outlawed except for one night a year, similar to like the Purge idea. And then it follows these two people who are both kind of hesitant about the night, not super sure about what they're going to do, and they end up going out and looking to hook up like basically everyone is doing, and they keep running into each other.
Yeah, the premise is that everybody is like
ravenous
waiting there, and then there's a timeline, there's a countdown until the amount, and you have a stamp on your wrist that can tell the government if you've had sex or not. People are getting arrested.
Yeah, they explain it a little bit. It's like a bio DNA thing where it can tell if your like cortisol levels and other things like elevate at the same time as someone near you,
and it turns red. It's red always if you're not married.
Yeah.
But if it turns green when it starts and everyone's really antsy and waiting, and everyone is fully like, they're talking about who they're going to find. They're going to find somebody random. Almost all of them are like, we're going to find somebody tonight.
Yeah. And then the main two characters, they go out, they keep running into each other. It leads to a bunch of funny comedy moments where they end up kind of being against each other. Then one of them likes the other one and vice versa.
But they're they're more romantic-y.
Yes.
Both of the two main characters, as opposed to all their friends and family or whatever, are more like, I want a real connection. That type of thing.
And then so the end, obviously it's romantic comedy, and you get to see whether or not they end up together. And we'll talk about the ending a little bit. So spoilers, if anybody cares about spoilers for this movie, I kind of doubt it, but we'll talk about the end and kind of what it meant and stuff like that. So stars Monica Barbaro, who plays Allie. She is from Top Gun Maverick.
Oh,
She's in the Bob Dylan movie, A Complete Unknown. Callum Turner plays the man, and he is from a few things. Masters of the Air, he was recently in with Austin Butler. And then it was fun. There were some really fun cameos in it from like Molly Ringwald played the mom, and she's the 80s, not romantic comedy, but more like teen comedy drama, coming of age, Breakfast Club, 16 Candles, Pretty in Pink. And then LeVar Burton, the Reading Rainbow guy, which you told that to me when we were there. I didn't think about that. And then directed by Will Gluck. He's done Easy A.
Oh.
Which I love Easy A. I think it's so good. Have you seen that?
That's another one I really see.
Yeah, Emma Stone. You guys see the Emma Stone ones. They're all good. Friends with Benefits. And then Anyone But You was his last film, which was actually fun. So that was with Sydney Sweeney and Glenn Powell, which it was so funny. Glenn Powell's face was in this movie.
Yeah.
In like a picture, and then you never see him again. So clearly, like, I'm guessing the director was like, hey, it'd be funny to do this.
And then they were talking about it. They were like, is this guy hot?
Yeah.
And I don't remember.
I don't remember either, but I'm sure it was like, yes. And then written by Travis Braun, which this was the most fascinating credit to me because he's mostly done only like kids movies and TV shows. And it looked like from the IMDb, from what I saw, and I might be misspeaking, but that this was like his first adult drama. And it's just hilarious to me how absurd of a premise it is. It's one of the most absurd premises I've ever seen in a movie.
Yeah.
Like even The Purge, so for whatever reason, it kind of makes more sense. Like, and feels like it's further in the future. Like this was 2028. They were trying to make like the idea, it required extreme suspension of disbelief.
Yeah.
Like not a movie I've seen in quite a while.
Well, it felt like it needed, and I told you this early on, it felt like it needed like to be more fantastical or like even just goofy, kind of like an Idiocracy or
just like further in the future, like where we're not relating it to current like government.
Yeah,
because it's like this.
But it did not take long for me to get caught in it, and I think that was just because of the gags. Like some of the jokes just ended up working, and so I was like, okay, yeah, I can forget about all this like craziness and just get in. But if it wasn't for that, I would have been like,
I thought they did somewhat of a decent job with such an absurd premise of this idea of the thing on your wrist that like monitors your vitals or your monitors what's like the genetic whatever in your body, and how that would tell them whether or not you're having sex with another person. Something that with this kind of movie seems clear to me, or at least feels clear, is that it's making some point, especially when it has to do with like the government enacting something, as well as just like premarital sex and why they would outlaw it. And then this idea of like the romance and the connection versus the frivolous,
quick hookup,
meaningless hookups. It feels like they're trying to say something. And for me, whatever that was that they were trying to say felt like muddled and just pretty unclear. Did you feel like they were trying to make any kind of point?
No, I didn't. Okay. I kind of felt like the premise you'd expect that they would be. Like that's how I felt going into the movie after seeing the trailer and just the premise in general. And then after watching the movie, it just felt like they were just telling a story. And it did feel like there was a point at the end, which was like a deeper connection is better than a single night hookup or whatever. That did feel like that was the conclusion of both the main character's point, and they had a happy ending in that sense. And so if anything, it was that, but they really just kind of like, I think it was more speaking to, I don't know if it was speaking to anything. It was just like, this movie was about sex. Mm-hmm. And interestingly, it was like more of a discussion about sex than about like showing sex in any way. And all the various different like attempts at hookups that the two main characters had, they were feeling the pressure from their friend groups in society, their friend groups were all about hookup culture. Everyone around them was like, go get some tonight. Like, go be crazy. Go do that. And both of them were like, okay, is that really what I want to do? It's going to feel bad afterward. But they're like, okay, I'll go try it. That'd be good for me. And the main guy character, he was in a relationship for 3 years, and you would learn early in the movie that she's like, I just want to go hook up with somebody tonight. And so he's in it. Yeah. Anyway, so it's interesting. All the different hookup or like attempts at hookups that they have are all like different types of like dating archetypes that you could go through. And therefore the movie, and they're all pretty funny. And so the movie, I felt like it was just more observing that. And I didn't, and then at the end, I did feel like it was a slight critique of that. Maybe not like a strong critique. But.
Yeah. And they made some comments throughout about like, all these people are getting married now.
Sure.
Like they would talk about different friends of theirs, like, oh yeah, they got married. But I think that what was fascinating to me, I mean, you and I are both Christians. And I would, for the vast majority of religious people, there is some sort of teaching about the value of sex. It's important, God's plan for it, how, for most Christians, how beautiful of a thing it is, but God designed it to be within marriage. And that would be true in Islam, Christianity, Judaism. Most of the world religions would teach that. And so now we live in a culture where there's just there's less religiosity, and this idea in the broader culture, and certainly in the culture that most movies are written in and take place in. That's just not how it is. Hookup culture is normalized, and the idea of abstinence, as like what we would have learned it as being called in high school, that idea can seem absurd and almost like impossible to people. Like, how could you go, like, that is such a meaningful part of even life, not even just relationships, because even people who were dating and living together weren't allowed to have sex in the movie. But also this idea of like, this is my body, I can do what I want with it. Sex is a natural part of life. And hooking up has no consequence. Like that idea is out there, and I would say it's like taken root in a lot of young people in the culture. And so it was really interesting to me to see something that was portraying relationships, and in particular the final relationship that's formed, that not only they decided we don't have to have sex today. Like, we don't have to force this. I made a real connection with you. I feel like we're kind of falling in love, as a lot of romantic comedies have. And even though we have to wait another full year, and even though we just waited a full year, it's okay to go 2 years without sex and the pleasure of it, the amount that it feels like it's got to be a natural part of life and part of your relationship, and you can't exist in love outside of it. And it's so interesting to me because, again, most people in religious communities would really exalt the idea of marriage, and they would relate the two things together, and that's why the reason that like sex should only take place in marriage. And this movie shows at the end that they've been waiting a full year. Like, after you saw them fall, they've been waiting a full year, and they're like really excited and looking forward to, like, oh, it's the night, like, we can finally do this. It uplifts the value of sex, like how much it's like, this is a really important thing. But what's fascinating to me is that they're still not married, but it mimics, a lot of people maybe who are watching this and are not in religious cultures in any means, and they're just in this like normal hookup culture, are maybe never experienced this, nor do they have friends or a circle of people who experience this. But when you're in religious communities, like you and I have been for a long time, I know many, many, many people who got married as virgins. And there's this feeling when you do, or even if you're not a virgin, you're like, you abstain from sex as much as you're able to until you get married. There is this excitement that you have going into your wedding day and your wedding night. And you got to see that at the very end of this movie, since they've been waiting. And even though they're not married, that general physiological / potentially spiritual idea kind of comes through on screen. So that was just fascinating to me. That was a long way of being like, that was interesting.
Yeah, it was interesting. But I do agree with you. Like, I would be interested in hearing if anyone else watches this, if they felt like there was a message. And what that message was, because it certainly was not like a Christian or religious film, nor was it promoting the idea of abstinence explicitly. Yeah. It was kind of implicitly promoting that, while also explicitly critiquing, everyone in the movie. It was kind of a funny trope that, like, obviously the politicians who enacted this were like deeply conservative, authoritarian, and everyone in the movie was against it, like everyone should be if they did something like
they
this.
Controlled everyone.
But one of the reasons I felt like it was just like this whole movie is it's trying to skirt the religious or political issues which are fraught in this topic, and it's really just trying to narrow in on what sex is and how it like relates with our romantic and just our life. And like, one of the key moments with that I just thought was interesting is when LeVar Burton's character and Molly Ringwald, the main character's mom and like stepdad, or her lover or whatever, they were just having a really deep political fight. She was saying something like, this is Obama's fault, or then he was like, what? They start kind of getting into it and heated, and then all of a sudden they like stop and they're like, we need you to leave, because they're like clearly about to do it.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I felt like that was kind of like the key of what this movie is like trying to say. It's like, there's something, it's about sex. It's not about what's the right way or wrong way, or politics or religion or anything.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Yeah.
I feel like that scene definitely made that point clear.
And which made it just really interesting, because sex is an unbelievably weird thing.
Yeah.
Like, when you think about it, if you like take a step back and you're just looking at us as like, or specimens, like, oh yeah, we're like really driven by this thing. And then watching like, well, what if, like, the premise is interesting. It's like a science experiment. Like, what if, it's a thought experiment for sure. What if one night a year would happen? And then they kind of go into all these things, and I liked that this whole premise played out in the actual plot. For example, like the condom being like the MacGuffin, like the thing that all the characters were like, they were all sold out of condoms.
All sold out.
And like there's surge pricing with like condoms, and also there's surge pricing for babysitters and that type of stuff. And then, so then both our main characters in separate ways are like desperately searching for a condom, and then they like have to team up to try to like get a condom to help each other have sex with somebody else.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's just fascinating. It's like, would that actually be how it is?
I think the most interesting thing to me was because they talked about marriage a little bit, and because it was about premarital sex. I just have to believe, because sex is such a drive in our life, that most people would be like, all right, well, let's get married. Like, it would seem like,
and that's what they talked about. They said a lot of their friends did that.
Okay, yeah. For some reason, it felt to me like it was like this one friend did it, and they did it too.
Oh, sure.
Rather than like, I need to find somebody to marry so that I don't have to just do this once a year.
Yeah.
And that would have actually been interesting to me, of like, they're both looking for someone to get married to or something like that. But it was a fun movie. I think the most surprising thing to me was that the humor really landed for me and for you at multiple points in the movie. It wasn't like, there wasn't a ton of laugh out loud moments, but I laughed out loud in at least 3 or 4 moments, and I chuckled many times throughout the movie. And I think the main reason for that was, I think that Callum Turner, he just really killed it. Last year, he was in Eternity with Elizabeth Olsen and Miles Teller, and that's a romantic comedy of sorts, mainly between Miles Teller and then Callum Turner plays the kind of the outside guy coming in and ruining what they had going. And it is hilarious, but I thought he did a really, really good job.
Yeah, I think they both did good. I told this to you. So we had a unique experience, and I'm really trying to separate my experience from like, man, what would other people, I have no idea how other people feel. Actually, it would be fun to pull up the Rotten Tomatoes and take a peek. But my expectations were extremely low. And so I think that
you didn't want to go, basically.
No, I
forced you to.
I felt like the trailer just didn't make it seem interesting at all.
Yeah.
And I'm not the target audience of this type of movie. I'm not a romantic comedy enjoyer very much. I mean, we were going through some old movies, and there's some great romantic comedies that I do like, but just as a genre, it's definitely not something I'm searching out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the humor, it not just saved it, it is the movie. It was, so whether it was, we were alone in the theater, which then made me wonder if this is going to bomb in the box office. You think so?
I'm not sure.
Well, Odyssey is out and Spider-Man is out, and they're going to stay the main things for a while.
They are, but for people looking for romantic comedy, there's not.
Yeah, there's not a lot. I wonder what the budget is for this.
So I think I saw it was somewhere around 10 million, but I'm not sure. I thought it was interesting. The vast majority of the movie takes place at night. And so there's definitely a very like visual feel to it. I think it's a really pretty movie. While I was watching it, I thought it was like, there was like a gritty nature to the filming, some grainy nature that I think happens kind of naturally when you shoot in low light, which they were kind of doing throughout the whole time. And I just remember thinking that it looked good. I was like, wow, this is shot really well.
Yeah. The more I think about it, the more I do think that it worked on a comedic level. Like when I think of, we were talking about Long Shot, the Seth Rogen, Charlize Theron.
Mm-hmm.
Like the trailer of this movie makes it feel much more to me like it was going to be, like any romantic comedy is like, is it more romance or is it more comedic? And this one felt like it was going to lean more romance, but it ends up feeling like it was more comedic.
Yeah.
Or at least the comedy really worked. And that's what drew me in. If the comedy didn't work, none of it would have worked at all.
Yeah.
I thought the romance was a good part of. I mean, I thought it worked on that end too, but it needed the comedic. It was pretty much the whole movie was comedy until the very end.
Yeah. The funniest part in the whole movie is when they first meet. I mean, it's so jarring.
Yeah, that's.
Do you remember what happened?
Man, there's so many good gags. I mean, I don't want to give them away, but when she's like a singer, and you're like, okay, she's singing, and then she's singing about, she's like a singer for those prescription medicine commercials that like, and I don't know. It's, I can't explain the joke very well, but it works. And then the singer guy, that was so funny. The crush that she has on like that, and then she ends up about to have sex. She's so excited, and then he turns out to be such a dirtbag,
so vulgar,
so gross.
Yeah,
it's really funny though.
I would say there was more coincidences in this film. It's like the premise was already absurd.
Yeah.
And so maybe it was like, well, if you've already accepted that, you're already in. And like the idea that these two people in New York City are going to run into each other 3 or 4 times in the same night. She was just talking about a rock star that she thought was attractive, and she sees him 10 minutes later.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, that's fine. I felt like it was enjoyable. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it to people to see unless they're really into romantic comedies and their filter for what they watch is not,
I would say I would definitely give it a fresh.
Yeah.
Like I the more we talk about it, like I'd watch it again one time for the rest of my life. There will be a time that it'll come across and I'll watch it.
I would watch it with Julia. I was telling her the whole premise last night, walking through it, and it was like, it was not only fun to watch, but it was fun to tell her about and her reaction. And, it is a funny idea.
Yeah.
And I can tell that I would think most people who like romantic comedies and they're just looking for the escapism of that would enjoy watching it.
Yeah.
There was some other fun cameos in there I didn't say, but there was the 2 cops. Pete Davidson. I forget the name of the other actor, but they were both in there. And I believe there was one more cameo that was pretty funny. So, or maybe I'm just thinking of the Glenn Powell thing. Which I love Glenn Powell. I was actually really upset and sad that he wasn't in the movie because I just think he's so funny.
Yeah. I'm curious what the Rotten Tomatoes is.
Yeah, so the Rotten Tomatoes.
Let me give it a guess.
Okay.
So it's got audience and critics.
Audience is not there yet, but I took a strong look through and I can tell you the general percentage.
I bet the critics are high on it. I bet it's got a 90.
Okay.
And then I don't know. I would just say the audience. I don't know how audiences differ for romantic comedies since I don't look into it. I would maybe guess the audience is maybe a little higher, a couple points higher than that.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was it?
Not even close.
No,
you're actually pretty close. So critics was 47%.
Whoa.
And
this is where I actually am really curious if our experience was like, man, we're just off because my expectations were so low, and then we had the theater to ourselves, so we were kind of like talking and joking.
I do think the culture people come from too just really has an effect. Like here's one review. Amid its zany energy and screwball mayhem, the film is doomed by a morally dubious premise that wants to be edgy but winds up as a real turnoff.
Oh, interesting.
And so I'm just like wondering, like, how did that final decision where they didn't get together at the end hit people? Because for people like you and me, I would guess it was like, oh, that's like how meaningful. Like, there's the connection there.
Yeah.
But for other people where it's like they've been trying to do this the whole night, like, and then it doesn't even come together. And so the fact that it doesn't come together, and are you saying that sex can't just be part of romance?
Yeah.
I don't know what people are thinking necessarily, but I would
really
guess that's in there.
It is interesting because on my way over here, I was thinking about romantic comedies that I like or don't like. And it really does matter your inner philosophy. I mean, you could say it's your religion, but it's really just because within your religion,
your worldview
and your ideology about sex and romance is like, it's like a really important thing for people. It's a really important thing for like when you're watching a romance and something happens in a way that you either agree or disagree with. It matters. So for example, there's a lot of romantic comedies that I watch that I'm just like, that's not how it works. Like, what's the Keira Knightley one, the Christmas one? Love Actually.
Yeah.
I just don't like Love Actually because the main thing is that she is essentially having an affair, and that's the romance, is that she got married to the wrong person, and then the one guy is like wooing her away out of her marriage. And then that's kind of like the thing. And to me, that's just like, that's just really against regardless of religion, it's just like, man, that's not something that I find romantic at all.
Yeah.
And so I can't even get caught up into what they're trying to portray. But I could easily imagine somebody really getting into that type of thing. Or many other romantic comedies. It's just that you fall, love at first sight, you fall in love, and then we just assume that everything's good after that. And I'm cynical and older, and I'm just like, that's not how that works either.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting thinking about like what did people come into it feeling like, and what is their worldview. Like this person is a critic. It says the film either hasn't chosen a point of view or has settled on a poor one. So it's like this person clearly had some point of view, and they felt like this movie leaned towards saying this. And so, I just wonder.
It's interesting too that both of those reviews that you just read feel like they're looking and searching for a message to be. And maybe it's because the premise of the movie feels like it's going to exude a message. When I'm just like, I don't know what the message is.
Yeah, here's another one. This is another critic. The film bends toward a prudish, heteronormative attitude about casual hookups that is unmistakably pro-mandate. Again, I kind of feel like that's correct.
Yeah, I guess.
But like he's coming in saying that's a bad thing. The movie's bad.
For the viewers, the mandate is the
not having sex.
They talk a lot about it as like they're like, everyone in the movie is anti-mandate.
Yeah. I think people potentially wanted a movie that goes, the mandate is a bad thing because there's nothing wrong with casual hookups.
Yeah. Well, it is interesting because even for me, it's like, okay, and I assume you are for this idea, regardless of religion or anything, that there's something a little bit more sacred to sex than just like one night stands. Like that's just where I lean somewhere on that side of things.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that the weird thing as I started the movie was like, in this world where there's a mandate, we shouldn't be telling a story about, ooh, what are people doing on this night? It should be like, we should all be protesting unbelievably. There should be such a massive revolution happening right now.
Yeah.
And so like, if any viewer doesn't get past that, it took me until several gags to be like, okay, we're just having fun here. Let's just ride this movie train instead of being like, what the heck is going on there? This is crazy.
Yeah.
And, I'm sure there's a lot of people, especially in the Hollywood sphere, that fear that this type, they see, the conservative, this is like the dream of like a conservative, side of politics to make this type of thing happen. And so then it's like, well, if we're going to make a movie about it, we need to be all about making sure that doesn't happen, rather than it can't be about just like, oh, what is sex? What is love? Whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, here's another person. Hard no. That's the whole critic blurb there. So yeah, I would guess that a large number of people, and I would say that critics in general lean progressive, let's say, and generally the progressive movement has been associated with the normalization of premarital sex, as the movie says. And so I can just see a lot of people getting upset by it. Well, but to me, that's similar to like what I personally don't like, which is where a religious person goes into a movie, they don't like the message, and so they can't enjoy any part of the movie, which is, I mean, I've had that very few times. There are issues that I feel very passionate about that are really hard for me. If it's like, this is just pro this, very, very few issues like that. But I think for a lot of people, it is a big deal. Yeah. If something doesn't align with their worldview, they can't rate the movie high. And for me, if your worldview has to do with that sex and romance are not, are different, and that romance has a higher value, or a required value before the sex can have the meaningful value, I think that's a good message. And so it's easy for me to be okay with liking it, but other people wouldn't be okay with that.
It makes sense. It is really charged. Everything they're talking about is super charged. And, we have a really charged climate in our, in America right now. So maybe just for me and you, the ending particularly was like, that works. It jives with what I generally think. So it didn't, to me, it didn't feel that way, but it obviously all these critics feel that way. So I wonder what other people think.
Yeah. This is another one. It says the movie's not serious about its central couple, and it isn't serious about its provocative premise either, which that gets back to what I was saying about the muddled nature of it. Of like, it doesn't seem like it's taking it seriously, that it's trying to say anything necessarily. And I personally kind of think that's fine. I don't really like preachy movies. So just presenting this of like, in that situation, there would be people like that.
Yeah.
And that there would be people who are like, I value connection more, and I'm not all about hookup culture. And to deny that and say we shouldn't even tell stories about those people or their points of view, that just seems foolish to me. But
yeah, interesting.
I only want movies that agree with exactly what I think.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people feel.
Yeah.
So especially with such charged topics, it is interesting. I'm certainly not the target audience for this, and also I've never lived in New York or any big city in the sense of being involved in hookup culture or anything like that. So these are topics and areas that I'm just watching a movie.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it is.
And I'm enjoying it. So
it's a different experience for every person. I think for some of these, though, it's so fascinating to me because the final decision of the couple to not have sex is like, it's the thing that completes the idea. Whereas if you're watching it the whole movie and they do have sex and it romanticizes that and it's like, this is awesome, then some of these people might come away from the movie and go, this is the difference between a 1-star movie and a 4-star movie.
Yeah.
Just based on the decision of the final moment. And it's like, well, can you not rate the rest of the movie and how it was just based on that final thing? And I get that. I do get it. There's movies that if they don't end right, then it just feels like, well, what was the whole
I think I'm in the same boat on the opposite end. Like, I think, spoilers, but when they were about to go up and they were like, let's pound one out really quick. And it was like, they only had a certain amount of time. So it was like clear that they were like, we're really just going to do it. And as they were about to do that, I was like, oh, it wasn't going to ruin the movie or anything for me, but it was just like, oh, it's like kind of just a little bit of a bummer that they're just like, this really was all about I'm just trying to have sex.
Yeah.
And then they were like, oh, they talked about when they were talking about their favorite parts of sex, and she's like, well, I like the build up. And he's like, well, the build up is what is great or whatever. And then they decided to not, just to not do it that night. And it's just like, and then I love that they fast forwarded and they showed them in a really seemed like a really healthy relationship.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm not trying to say that is what's best, but in the world at that moment, it really felt like they were about to really minimize their connection just to this one physical act. And they chose not to. And I was like, oh, I'm not trying to say anything about marriage or whatever, but in that world, it seemed like a positive.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed that. And so I'm on the opposite end. That the fact that they went that way,
it would have made it worse to you.
Yeah, it increased the movie's my enjoyability as I walked away.
Yeah.
So just in the same way that if somebody felt differently, I totally get that might have decreased because they really feel so strongly.
Yeah.
Heavily decreased their view of the movie.
Yeah.
So that makes sense.
We were thinking about other romantic comedies that we've either seen or like. A lot of those romantic comedies, I'd say that you've maybe seen. I've done a little bit more of a deep dive into some of the more classic 90s to 2000s romantic comedies of the time, like the 27 Dresses, She's All That, 10 Things I Hate About You, How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, a lot of those that were really popular when we were younger. But I would say what we've seen a lot more of would be either comedy movies, or even somewhat action type movies or other genres where the romance is a big part of it, but particularly movies that seem primarily about the comedy. And I think one of the things that separates them, so things that I would say would be like Scott Pilgrim versus the World, even The Princess Bride, that's another genre.
I really don't feel like Scott Pilgrim is anywhere close to romantic comedy. There's no, I mean, there's a relationship a little bit. It's so heavily on the parody.
Yeah. And then we were talking about like Bruce Almighty.
Yeah,
that's like him and Jennifer Aniston. I think the big difference that separates those movies though from like a true romantic comedy is that a romantic comedy is about both people in the relationship equally, whereas something like Bruce Almighty, even though the relationship is central, it's central to his experience and not hers. You get to see what she's experiencing only through his eyes, so you don't spend any time like alone with her. Where something like this, or any of the ones that I just mentioned, or Crazy Rich Asians, or you know, some of the more recent ones that have been good or funny, or the what was the one you mentioned earlier with Charlize Theron?
Oh, Long Shot.
Long Shot. It's like you're staying with both of them for a while, and that still is not always true with like rom-coms. Like 27 Dresses is far more about Katherine Heigl than it is about James Marsden's character. So, but it does feel to me like if it's a comedy and it's about romance and it's about both people, those feel like true romantic comedies. And that's what this definitely was. You spent time with both of them throughout the whole thing. And of those movies, I would say you certainly you have expressed you haven't seen quite as many.
Probably not as many as you.
Yeah. But I love rom-coms. I think they're really fun. We did a whole several weeks in film history or film genres on romantic comedy. I feel like we spent like a month on it. Screwball, the difference between screwball and romantic, and you know, looking at It Happened One Night and a bunch of the really classic rom-coms. And I love those. I mean, I grew up on mostly movies from the 40s, 50s, and 60s because we had kind of stricter views of what we could watch. And so those movies generally felt quote unquote clean. And so I saw a lot of those romantic comedies growing up. And I think that the ones today still follow a lot of the same tropes and have a lot of the same interesting elements where the comedy is mixed with the romance. And so,
yeah, I think for me, when I think of romantic comedy, it's interesting. I usually like when the premise of a movie, it's got like a really strong, interesting premise. So for example, like Palm Springs, that's like a great, I think, romantic comedy, but it's got a very strong separate premise that's really
sci-fi or sci-fi? It's like fantasy.
Big spoiler.
It's like fantasy.
And it's basically. But same with this, you know, what is this? One Night Only just had a really strong premise that made the whole thing really interesting. And then when you get into something that's more like, this is about the romance and just kind of that, and maybe a little bit of some social dynamics, like, oh, I don't know. Would you say like Meet the Parents is romantic comedy? I'd say.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's so hard to tell.
There's romance.
Well, we were talking about Bruce Almighty a lot before this, and just how it's like, okay, I just felt like that's strongly in this is just a comedy, and that's just what that is. Yeah. And there is a stronger romance element, and then you were saying maybe it is leaning more romantic comedy. Yeah. Than I do.
It definitely, the romance is central to his journey and him experiencing, because Jennifer Aniston, he like learns from her and from the way that she cares for him and prays for. It's such a special moment at the end when he's going through the emails where he sees what people have been praying for, and he sees like how much she's been praying selflessly for him, and how the whole build up to where he becomes like gains the power of God. He's only thinking about himself. She gives him the prayer bracelet. He's only praying for himself. And then him getting to see that and how much his life has hurt her. She's crying. He sees her crying in her room and praying and asking God to help her forget about him because she loves him. I mean, it's a really deeply spiritual and romantic, and maybe not romantic, very deeply spiritual and focusing in on what it means to love another person type of movie, surprisingly, because from the trailers, it just looks like, what if this guy got the power of God and could do whatever he wants? But it's a really meaningful movie. And but but again, it's about the premise and far more about Jim Carrey, and Jennifer Aniston is a supporting character, and so it's hard for me to say it's a rom-com.
Well, I'm curious what just the basic like search is. What genre is Bruce Almighty? Supernatural comedy film.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I guess I would when I think of like rom-coms, like pure rom-coms, I would just say that this is one of my least favorite genres when all stacked together. It's a good movie. I like it still. It's like, I feel like going into this podcast, it's similar to when we talked about Furious, the martial arts. It's like, man, this genre is just not a genre that I'm well versed in.
Yeah.
If it's a good movie, I really enjoy it. Like,
I've done a deeper dive recently, like The Wedding Planner.
Yeah, not a fan. I've seen that.
Yeah, there was another one recently with Jennifer Lopez, actually, where she is like a pop star, like she's in real life.
Yeah.
Owen Wilson falls in love with her. I saw that.
Did you?
It's really good.
Is it good?
Uh-huh.
All right.
And then I was thinking about another kind of maybe more prestigious movies that are rom-coms are the Woody Allen films.
Yes.
So Annie
which
Hall.
I generally like.
If you're ranking greatest rom-coms of all time, you're going to see It Happened One Night. You're going to see Annie Hall. You're going to see Bringing Up Baby. As far as the old classics. But I like
The Apartment. That's a good
The
one.
Apartment.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, what a hilarious movie. But another one that I really like, and we were talking about this, that's a modern one that I think is like, to me, the best romantic comedy is Crazy Stupid Love.
Yeah.
I think it's like the funniest, it's the smartest. Everybody loves Steve Carell and Ryan Gosling, and they're both just like at their most, you're just being such a good I mean, Ryan Gosling is playing.
So I haven't seen it. Is Emma Stone or is it Julianne Moore? Are they in it very much?
They're not in it nearly as much as the other two, but they definitely are in it a fair amount. So really good. The other Woody Allen film that I love is Midnight in Paris. I'm not sure if you saw that. It's with Owen Wilson.
Yeah, I did too.
Really,
and
really
I
liked that a lot.
Yeah.
So it's not as comedic, but certainly still a romantic comedy.
Yeah. I liked one. Did you see Always Be My Maybe?
Yes.
I liked that. Yeah. Some of these I probably saw.
That's with Ali Wong.
Yeah.
And the guy who plays Fake Jim from the Office.
Yeah.
And in Ant-Man.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of great ones. To me, I'll get in a mood sometimes where I just think a romantic comedy would be so fun and easy to watch right now.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of a sucker for just like, I like teen dramas and teen comedy romance, and that whole period of life where you're kind of first falling in love and experiencing all of those emotions. I just think is a fascinating time and makes for really interesting drama that you don't experience as an adult, or at least an older adult. And so I would say I don't feel the same as you, where I'm saying like it's probably my least favorite genre. But
what do you think about romance?
Just straight up romance?
Yeah, isn't like Pride and Prejudice? That's just like a romance.
Yeah, romantic.
Which I really like.
Yeah, romantic dramas. I mean, yeah, I like them.
Or
less
The Notebook.
Yeah, or Atonement, or
yeah.
I love The Notebook. I love Little Women so much. That's not mainly a romance, but it's a lot about, especially in the book, it's a lot about the romance between.
I'm just thinking of the recent Greta Gerwig one, which is the only one I've seen.
Okay, yeah,
which I love.
She made it more about just the main character.
Yeah.
And she kind of changed the ending and stuff like that. And people were upset about that. I didn't really care. I think the movie was incredible. But anyway, the point is, I think the book's quite a bit more romantic. But you're right; it's far more of a drama, family drama. But yeah, I as we mull over it, there are a lot of movies that I really like. But I would like to look at my top 100 movies and go back and see how many are actually in this that are full either romance films or rom-coms.
Yeah. One that we talk about, both of us really liking, is Night and Day, which is the action parody romance.
Yes.
And I really enjoy it. It's Tom Cruise and Cameron Diaz, right? And it's just really fun. And I love action parody like so much.
Yeah.
And then it's got a pretty good romantic like twist to it and everything. But I guess my point of what I'm trying to get at is that I think romance as its own genre is maybe one of the bottom things that I enjoy. And rom-com is just one step closer to comedy, which I enjoy.
And so if all the comedy lands, you're like, oh, I'm fine that the comedy is taking place within this romantic relationship.
Yeah. I think something I'm also realizing, I might just be spitballing here, but I like when there's a lot of genres in one package. Like the more specialized you get, the less dynamic. And
this is like sci-fi, what we just saw, One Night Only is like, it's sci-fi.
Kind of sci-fi. Yeah.
It's a political, it's not a political film, but
it's really just a comedy.
It's a comedy, but it's the premise of it is there's some word for that. I can't think of what you would call the genre. I mean, it's a micro genre.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah. It makes me want to see his other films. I didn't see Anyone But You with Sydney Sweeney and Glenn Powell, but
yeah, for sure.
If I'm in the right mood, I might pull it up.
Yeah.
Or sometimes, like if I'm on Netflix or Hulu, and the first movie that comes up has a trailer for a rom-com, if I'm in the right, like in a certain mood, I'll be like, all right, turn it on, let's watch that.
Yeah.
So